Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
It's been a minute.
It has been a minute.
Yeah.
But you see, also, like, the reason all this time passes so fast, especially for you, is that you work in all these super fast-paced
environments.
Yeah.
So
and
you
it's
can
like you go
imagine.
looking for them.
You can imagine how 2020 was. It's like from taking 10 flights a year to nothing. And you're just like, what is this madness? But it's sort of like been a time to reflect. Because like when you are on the go, you just never get a chance to reflect. Like, what did this experience teach me? What was that occasion? What was this project? So for me, I think 2020 has been a lot of that. And I think it's been an opportunity to also grow as a person. Because, you are sucked into this world where it's always on the move. And you just never take a time to like reflect, who am I? What am I evolving to be? So I thank God we're here. Yeah.
Maybe you could like give a little bit of an intro into what you do and how you got into this field. And because for you do like such a multiplicity of things.
Yes. My name is Beth Achitsa, and I work as the East Africa representative for The Orchard. The Orchard is a subsidiary of Sony Music and primarily focuses on the digital distribution of music. It has presence in 46 markets, so we're just happy that Nairobi is on that global map, and we are excited to be working with such amazing talents from across East Africa.
When we think about like the ways in which African music is being received globally, it's felt a lot like, if you're looking at things from here, South African music is having a consistent moment. And to be fair, they've had their moment for a while. And then now West African music is getting there. And are East Africans doing When Is Our Time?
I mean, like, look at the entry of DSPs such as Spotify into the East African market. That is an indicator that there's a market that needs to grow here. So the difference between South African artists and Nigerian artists, and when it comes to East African artists, I think the difference is the approach. And for me, talent is par across the world. It's the extra mile that we need to go as East African people. Because I believe talent and production, that has been addressed with the advancement of technology. So where the big question is where is our marketing? What are we doing in terms of making the sound travel? I think 2020 has been an interesting year because there's the evolving sound called gengeton from Kenya. And everyone, because I work in a global office, everyone was just, can you tell us what this gengeton is? Who should we be checking out? And then it's still evolving, and there's a lot of actors, because I think that is what defines Nairobi. Nairobi is a vibrant city full of young, energetic people, and that is represented through gengeton. So I think the question is how far gengeton goes. It depends on the actors in that field, and that is from the artists and the management teams and everyone who's investing in the music. Because I think a lot of people invest, and then they get to the point where they have a product and then they think the work is done. With music, your work is just getting started.
Your work actually begins when you leave the studio with a finished song.
Yes.
Okay, so now ideally, what does that work entail?
So there's a lot. So previously, the business has been evolving. If you're following the trends in the music industry, which means we were in the physical CD, vinyl, cassette era, and now since 2016, streaming has been on the uptick, which means each week, if you're an artist, you're competing with about 60,000 tracks that get released every week. And that is just like one platform. Take for Spotify, for instance. That's just like 60,000 tracks that get delivered to them. So for you to stand out of that crowd, there's a lot, which means, do you know where your audience lives? Do you know who you're trying to reach? How are you telling the people in South Africa that I am a Kenya with a gengeton product? And as much as you're listening to Amapiano, this is something you also need to explore, because I think the audience isn't a problem. you will notice that with the streaming business, the attention span has sort of like decreased. A lot of people are consuming a lot of content, so you really need to make your content stick. So with that, it means your marketing has to be right, how you communicate, how you plan the release. Because I think just like dealing with a lot of labels between East Africa and West Africa, you see the difference, which is like an artist spends 10 months in the studio producing a product, which is brilliant. And then the next call is, can I have my music out on Friday? So you spend 10 months to put out a product on one day, where you've not told even your friends that, there's a new project coming, and this is why you should be listening. I think in this era where access to information isn't a challenge, you need to stand out, which means you have to utilize whatever you have in your ability or within you. So I think the biggest challenge has been the marketing element of the music that is coming out of East Africa. Take West Africa or Southern African artists. The difference is, for them, they look at the data they get from their different distributors, and they will see, I have a population in Uganda, and the first point of action is, I need to go do a radio tour within Uganda. I need to do live shows. I mean, like, we all understand East Africa, there's a lot of challenges, which means the market is do it yourself. So you are the artist, you are the creative director.
And it's a lot.
It's the marketing. So they need to come from a point of,
they need to come from a point
of understanding that they are learning the entire business. It's challenging, but you need to focus. And that's why it's important to build teams.
How does one go about building teams? Because that's a real challenge here, because also in the same way that people are learning how to be on some of these platforms, they're learning how to look at data. It seems like even the teams are learning. The teams are already focused on bigger acts, and then you, who has your guitar, and you probably perform in your room, sometimes at an occasion, sometimes at church, and you now want to take the next step. It's very easy to become discouraged.
Yes. I mean, sometimes you have to look within your network. We definitely all have friends. We have friends we take to parties, and then we have friends we talk business with, and then we have friends we lean in for just like insights. If you're in the same environment, then you have to discover who's that one person. You need friends who will tell you, yes, your product is great, but your strategy won't work. You need the sounding board, people who will be upfront with you, because when you're building your business, because music is just like any other business, and you have to look at what is the opportunity, what are the implicative costs, how am I making profits, and how do I generate revenue, right? So if you have a yes friend, which means today you'll wake up and you say, oh, this is a great product, should we put out on Thursday? And they're like, cool, right? But you need a friend who will be like, but what are your goals? So at the end of the day, you have to define your goals, even as you form your teams. I know it comes from a well-meaning side of things, where people are, okay, I'm willing to help, but then they start and they just discover how much work you have to put in. And then they're like, this is not what I signed up for. So you have to get people who are committed and buy into the vision. So you have to be able to articulate your vision as an artist. You just can't imagine that Njoki will buy into my vision because we're friends. So you have to articulate, and you're like, this is our journey. 2023, we need a billboard within the biggest spot in Kenya. How do we get there? We need a great product. So all of you are on board. Do not start a process with someone else and then get in the middle and then try to sell someone the same idea, but then for them, the vision or the goal is totally different. So you have to look within your circle, find who is that one person who's a friend, but will be upfront with you to say, okay, is this a business case, or are we just having fun? There's a way to do things. Like, the people who will invest in the music because it's a hobby for them, and it's like, where do I put this extra cash? Yeah.
There's really an interesting thing you've said, which is kind of pointing out that some people will invest very differently. There may be some people who will be able to give you actual cash, but then there are people who will invest time. There's people who will invest energy and effort to just hype you. And that all of those are investments. And that then this investment is a journey. It's not just we are here today and then we're gone tomorrow, because the music career needs
It's consistency, because within the streaming world, and I reference that because we are a digital distribution company, it takes about 21 days for people to be like, oh, when was your last project?
What?
Yeah, 21 days.
People are ready for the next song.
Yes. So that's how competitive the market has become. So are you ready to be reacting, or you have a proper strategy to live for the next 10 years? Yeah.
I think it's a really good place to kind of start asking questions about the data. And I'm really curious about what the data is teaching you guys at Orchard, and especially because you're here in the East African context, but then Orchard distributes globally.
Yeah.
So what is the data telling you about where African music is being played more and more? Because African music is having a moment.
I mean, there's Amapiano is traveling, and if you just like reference the biggest hit of 2020, which was Jerusalema, you can see, and that's a song that was put out at the start of 2019. So it just tells you on the streaming platforms, everything is a possibility. You might put out what you believe is a hit, but then the fan base is not connecting today. But 6 months down the line, because you've been consistently pushing and, talking to the right parties, things start, taking action. Because like when you look at 2020, which was a hard year for most people, what we started realizing, especially in the digital space, is people started going back to catalog music.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and in 2020, a lot of what people listened to, it wasn't really the content that was coming out. And I think for me, just like especially coming from the East African market where things tend to take a long time to grow, it was exciting to see a lot of Kenyans putting out content, and generally in the East African market, because a lot of people put out albums, EPs, singles during that period. So I think based on that, you start realizing, as much as there's been this question of, okay, why isn't there a lot of music being churned out of the Kenyan market, for instance, as you would compare with Nigeria, then you just start realizing it's the opportunity, and people now starting to realize what does that mean. Because on the digital platforms, you might have one track that generates 1 million streams, or you would need to have 1 million tracks that each generate one stream, and then you sort of like start seeing the value. With digital distribution, it's a streaming, it's a volumes game. So you just can't put out one track in January 2021 and expect to see some substantial income. So you have to sort of like put out a lot of content for you to start seeing the value or the investment. But I think other than just like seeing the catalog trending, there's a lot of other emerging genres. Of course, Latin music, reggaeton, and what have you have been on the growth. And then K-pop, definitely, it's just like one of those genres where you're like, what are they singing? Like we all come from this perspective of, oh yeah, you need to have a universal language. You need to sing in a language that people understand. So with K-pop, that is totally different. And you're seeing a lot
because
of
they will sing in their Korean and people will be like, we love it anyway.
Yes. And it's the same if you look at Gengeton, because they use slang language, Sheng, which is just like, what are they saying?
Also because Sheng is always changing.
Yes. It's evolving. So sort of like with music, it has to connect with the emotion side of the person, and then the rest will be addressed later on.
So language is not a thing anymore.
It's not problematic per se, because I mean there are different people who will look for different things, but I think as an artist, if you are able to storytell, because I think within the streaming platform, the key thing that will make you stand out is how are you storytelling? Do people know when you say, I am Tetushani, will they know who you are? So it's sort of like you have to really craft your narrative, and people have to be convinced, because I think people are consuming a lot and they just do not have time for mediocrity or, like half-baked stories. So you really need to craft your story, and you have to be able to articulate whatever your music is all about. Yeah.
Let's talk about the other things that a song can do, because
Yes.
like a song can be listened to by an audience.
Yes.
But then there's other things it can do. It can be used in movies, it can be used in.
Yes.
So how does somebody kind of get into that space where their song has multiple dimensions?
I mean, like the entire music business, like for you to understand the different revenue streams, that takes some time. So, which means you have to be really educated. And if you do not understand that business, like education doesn't just mean getting the certificate. It's, are you talking to the right people? Are you researching? Are you trying to understand the trends? Because there's the master side of the music, and then there's the mechanical side. So the master is what you will see with the digital distribution, and that deals with the master rights. And then the mechanical part, that has to do with the songwriting and the production. So the two ways you can utilize your masters is exploited on digital distribution, collection of neighboring rights, radio airplay and internet radio and all that. And then with the mechanical, that has to do with publishing, where you will get 30 seconds of your song used in TV or commercials or, brand alignment sort of alignment within the music industry. So with that, you sort of like have to really understand. If you do not know, then find friends who understand.
You have to get somebody who knows. So it's not a thing that somebody can kind of study by themselves quietly in their room.
And it's always evolving. Like what we knew 10 years is totally different. Yeah. I mean, we are all just advocating for, you need to protect your intellectual property. How many artists actually know the process of doing that? How many people know we have a Kenya copyright board where you need to go and register your music? How many people know for your music to be collected? Because if there's internet radio playing your music in the US, do you have the mechanism, or do you need to talk to a certain publisher or a collection management organization so that they're collecting for you on that side and then the money gets delivered to you? Yeah.
This is hectic. Yes. Because like you just wanted to write a love song and play your guitar, and then now there's all this hecticness, which means that you definitely need to find people who can take care of those things.
I think that's where it goes back to, you need to build a team. The music
from the start.
Yes, the music business is not a one-man show. I know it's difficult.
Even if it can look like a one-man show.
Yes. It's difficult around here because you're thinking about the resources. I am your friend, I vibe your music, I am ready to be your manager, but I have bills at the end of the day. So you sort of like have to find a way to compensate each other, which means as a manager, then you have to be really hustling for all the deals so that we are able to stay afloat. But then you really need to build that team. Because I think also just like looking at a lot of companies are now building teams on the African continent. Because previously it was more of an outsider looking in. But now everyone is understanding, for you to make an impact, you really want to understand what is the culture, what is happening on the ground, and it's just not like, let me show up in Nairobi, find all the artists and give them a deal. So there's a lot of investments with, major labels sort of like hiring people, building teams on the ground. So it's important also for you as an artist, as you see that happening, because label executives are interested to speaking to people who have a business case to build, right? So you just can't have like, who are you? I am a musician and this is my project. They're interested to know, what is your 5-year plan looking like? And even for me as a label manager working with artists to just like make sure their releases hit the stores, it's the usual question, what is your 18-month plan looking like? And then you're like, no, I want to push this song out. And I'm like, okay, you're pushing it out, but for what reasons? What is the lifespan of this music? Because just like the example I used where a song comes out like 2 years and then it starts charting in 2021, it's a process. And you have to continuously sort of like invest and keep on talking to the right parties.
Let's talk about some elements of the value chain that are coming up and becoming more important. And I think one of them is the DJ and the ways in which people are introduced to music by a DJ, or a song is given fresh context. By a DJ. And in many ways, some people are arguing that the DJ is almost an artist in a sense, because like it's like they almost do a remix without having to go into the studio, because they show you how a song works. From a digital distribution perspective, where does the DJ sit for you?
I mean, so the value chain, which means how are people discovering your music, right? I think just like looking at Nairobi, like our public transport is one way that could be a conduit for pushing out that content, because how many thousands of people use the public transport? And it's like you're targeting 32 people in one sitting and they're there for like an hour. And it's just like we haven't been able to capitalize on that. But, before COVID, we had DJs at the clubs, because I think a DJ sort of like sits at an interesting place in the music industry, because for him, he has the one-on-one interaction, and he's able to gauge like, oh, this song, this is how it's connecting with this audience. The fans are interested in listening to this song. So in a way, some DJs would make very good A&R practitioners, and as well as just like setting the agenda, because they're the people who first push out the concert, the music at, the live venues and the live performances that they have.
And they're actually the ones who decide. So like,
yes.
Do they play this song when the energy is rising?
Yes.
Or do they play it when things are calming down? And then they tell people when to expect to listen to a song?
Yes. I mean, it's sort of like the COVID situation has changed how people are discovering. But I think a lot of DJs have also been clever and pivoted in that they have started doing their own DJ sets on the digital space. That comes with a whole other complication.
Yeah, could we talk about that?
Yeah.
Because like it then becomes tricky because the DJ doesn't own the song.
Yes.
But the context of the song is the new thing.
Yes.
But nobody wants to pay for the contextualization
for the context. Yeah.
So then where will that leave DJs in this space?
I mean, for them, they're looking at it as an opportunity to market themselves at this point. But I know there's a lot of development that is happening, where you're seeing a lot of producers and DJs sort of like now moving forward, just like to the center stage of the music business. They have now realized they are an important part of this ecosystem. So a lot of them are just like reinventing how they are working, especially where you have to transition your business. Because then that comes with either you have to clear all the masters, but if your goal is just like to build your name, then you create a channel where everything is whitelisted and you're not monetizing. For instance, on YouTube, so you're not monetizing. And then, there are platforms that are able to support cover or DJ mixes. So there's a lot of that growth that will be happening. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
What's happened to the live gig, especially in these weird times? And what do you think is the future of people going for live gigs? Because like crowds, like unless you decide now you don't care, if people will get Delta, they'll get it. Or whichever other variant it'll be.
Yeah.
But what's happening with regard to live gigs? Because it's unlikely that we'll go back exactly to the way live gigs were before.
Yeah. I mean, like being at concerts, that's where music you had probably 6 months starts making a lot of sense. You listen to the music and the environment is just like the right ambience and the right connection. Because, I think even as we reinvent how the live scene will look like, it will always be about what experiences are you offering the audience. Because, if you're just gonna play a sample of what they have had on the digital platforms, then people are like, why should I pay this X amount? So I think in the long run, there'll definitely be a lot of things to, bring back that side of things. But live is here to stay, because I think that's the one major way people are sort of like discovering and listening to new talents and artists. Yeah, so the live business will continue, but it's just like, how is it coming back? Because I know it's been a year and a half. I know we've seen around there's a few concerts picking up here and there, but like, one day it's okay, and then the next day we have like a lot of issues with the spike. But I think with the live, I think it's the investment that will be happening post, like when we go back to the live production. Because I think it will be about experience, the experience that the people will be experiencing, like from your concerts or the live performances that the artists are sort of like putting out there. And just like in that regard, because I know venues have shut down, and there's just like the question of, will this sort of like wake up? And when you see organizations like the French embassy in Nairobi and the Alliance Francaise investing in 5 different venues across the country, because I think even before COVID, like touring within Kenya, we do not have a consistent circuit. So when you see some money being invested where 5 counties will have like properly equipped spaces and properly trained professionals to put on live performance shows, then that means, it's still part of an important way for the artist. And in Kenya specifically, live performance accounted for like the biggest chunk of the music business.
So people should just kind of keep preparing quietly.
Yes.
Because live performance will return.
Like live performance, as I said, is here to stay. It's just like, are we being careful? What is that return to normalcy looking like in terms of putting on concerts?
I think a thing that people keep talking about is that the live performances don't have the kind of technical investment that they should.
Yes.
People are so tired of like you see your favorite artist and then there's a shenanigan with sound. There's a shenanigan with I don't know what. All of those things. And so how do we get past? How do we jump past those things?
I mean, it's been an area that was sort of like getting sorted out when you saw investment from entities such as Gig Dynamics, because I know they had started doing a lot of open houses where it's sort of like, an artist, can you come and meet your sound engineer? Can you have a conversation? Do you actually understand what microphone you should be using, at what level, and how do you sort of like position yourself? So there was a lot of that happening. And I'm just hoping that with a lot of, people knowing that there will be live concerts, because like what happened to the gear that people were using? Are people buying new gear to prepare for what will be a potential growth market after COVID scenario has eased and it's possible to sort of like do a lot of concerts? And that's why the creative art spaces in Kenya by the French sort of like is an interesting project that will see the development of a touring circuit from the western side of Kenya to the coastal side of Kenya. And it just like makes a lot of sense for an artist if you're thinking, how do I tour Kenya? Because a lot of it has just been centralized in Nairobi, and a lot of everything is within Nairobi. So if you want to do a concert in Mombasa, for instance, then you have to hire gear from Nairobi and then take it all the way to the coast. And then you're thinking, who's down there who understands how to, put together sound for this concert or that other concert? So I think because the creative arts spaces in Kenya will sort of like bring together, equip the spaces with, live performance gear. And then it will also enable the people who work as lighting technicians or sound technicians to be able to be trained. And, just like you have 5 spaces that have the same standard of professionalization and equal equipment. Yeah.
Do you think there's room for intra-Africa tours?
Yeah. I mean, like when you look at the Southern Africa, there used to be a network called IGODA, which meant 5 countries: Mozambique, South Africa, and then they had a bit of, the Reunion Island, the islands. So they were part of that circuit, and you could tour through 5 different countries as long as you're chosen by the network. So there's been attempts. So the challenge across is sort of like, in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, then you are met with these different jurisdictions where you're like, if you have to perform in Tanzania as a Kenyan, then you sort of like need to have a license or a permit. So I think if we are able to address those issues as a region.
And that those sound like management level conversations.
I think it starts at a higher level, which is the government. Are the government sort of like talking to each other as a block? Are they existing as independent units of a bigger chunk? Yeah, I think if the governments were sort of like able to eye on that, like it's possible to, they provide things like tax rebates and tax, relief for artists, then it's possible to build that network. Because then it's 45 minutes just to like fly from Kenya to Uganda and people can do concerts. But then the bureaucracy you meet at the airport, like, what is this gear? Your gear is held in customs because you have to provide some sort of like documentation and everything. And yeah, so I think it has to start with the political environment. the governments have to make that sort of like the environment conducive for business to grow. So
because currently it's not.
Yeah. It's not. And I think just like referencing CASIC, which will also develop a charter to sort of like address those issues where how do we fundraise? Because I think the biggest challenge has been, especially across music, is the investment, where some people will feel like, oh, this is such a risky business. Yeah, that has sort of like changed, especially with entities like HEVA coming in and they're saying, yeah, we are willing to invest in the creative industry generally. So I think that sort of like gives artists a reprieve. They know there's an alternative to, where people are like, yeah, your business is risky. We're sorry, it's good, but no one is ready to invest in that. But I think it also just boils down to the actors in the business. If they are able to speak with a unified voice, where they're able to say, this is what we ask of our government, and then there's stronger lobbying efforts, then it's possible to have some things addressed.
I mean, I think, and I completely receive everything you've said, and you're right.
Yes.
I do think that musicians are so tired because it's like you just want to sing your song and go home. What is this having to go and lobby? You have to go and talk to a government that doesn't even take you seriously. But the minute you start making money, they want your tax.
Yes.
Right? So it can really fill people with a lot. But you're saying that work absolutely has to be done.
Yes.
And there's no avoiding it.
Yeah. I think the other big missing gap within the music ecosystem is we are a DIY industry, do it yourself. So there's that opportunity for people who are interested in the management level. So if anyone who's interested in the management level, then there's an opportunity for you. Only you need to sort of like learn and understand the business, because it's not going to be your usual corporate sort of like setup. You have to adjust a lot. So if more people can take up roles in the management side of the music business,
things will start moving faster.
Then that way we're able to sort of like set up a proper structure where the artist is not the manager at some point, they're not the marketer at some point. So you get there's a lot. Because the artist at the end of the day, you are primarily supposed to be focused on the creative side, which is put out a proper product. And then you will be needed during marketing, which means you have to appear for all the promotional campaigns, whether it's PR, radio, or billboards and everything else. So I think there's that opportunity. If there's a company that is looking to invest in the music industry, then management is one area. Marketing is also another area that I feel is a big missing link for the Kenyan or East African industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have two more questions for you. And the first one is about music videos and where the music, what is the data telling you guys about music videos? Are music videos helping songs? Are they a waste of money? Should money go into other parts of marketing apart from music videos? What's the sense you guys are getting?
I mean, the visuals, you listen to music and sometimes it's just like, what is the artist talking about? And then the people who put out like some really great visuals, because visuals at the end of the day is still a big part of the music, the promotional element of music. So I wouldn't say like it's a waste of money. You just need to know how are you investing in it, because sometimes people tend to take a shortcut, which is like, okay, this video is supposed to be 5,000 grand, and then you want to do it at 10,000 Kenya shillings. Like, you see the disparity. It's like you have to understand at the end of the day. I mean, just don't put out any visual for the sake of it. It's be intentional about whatever product you're putting out there. If you have a properly structured video and properly packaged, then it's gonna get your music traveling. Because some people don't connect with the audio, and then you just put out an amazing video that has great visuals or is communicating the story, then it helps your music travel.
Which goes back to the thing that you said earlier about storytelling.
Yes.
And then speaking of storytelling, there's ways in which it's really become decentralized. And you can tell that on TikTok, where now somebody will take an artist's song and then they repurpose it to tell stories for their own lives. So can you tell us what TikTok is doing for the music industry?
I mean, this is like, TikTok has been one of those platforms that has really evolved, especially during the COVID era. It started with dances, And that might not be the case today because people are into duets and they're into comedy on TikTok. So when you look at the journey of music, you will see word of mouth is still one great way of promoting your music, just like word of mouth. And then second up is TikTok. Because TikTok, with the many challenges people are putting out there, sometimes it will look like disrespect or people are not respecting the creative side of that music. But at the end of the day, there's just like 18-year-olds to 25-year-olds who are just like, what is this thing? And then they keep on just like going down the rabbit hole to find, oh, okay, this is what the song sounds like. And that impacts how the music is being streamed at Spotify. And even as a company, we started having to see like, oh, which are the top songs on TikTok. And, like, it's a fairly young platform when you compare to platforms such as Spotify, but its impact can't be ignored. So it's a greater part of how people are now looking at promoting their music. So, I mean, it might look with all the craziness that happens there where you feel like, is this what the artist intended? But I think when you're talking to the right people and you have, because TikTok has a creators pool where people will listen to your music and just like try and interpret how that song can connect with different moods or different occasions, and then they will make their skits. So that really helps to make the music travel. So at the end of the day, I know TikTok is not for everyone. Some people are just there for research. Some people are there for work purposes. And then there are people who are having a day with the platform. So I think for an artist, you have to really figure out how that platform works for you. If it's not for you, there's Instagram. So you have to really find a platform that really works for your brand and your vision. Because sometimes TikTok is great, but it's not for you. Your target audience is between 34 and 35. So you have to unlock, where does this audience exist? How do they consume the music? And that, especially when you look at the dashboard from your DSPs or, like Apple or Spotify, you're able to see, okay, they will even show you, because like from our data, we're able to see, a lot of your fans are consuming your music on a mobile phone or a computer or,
which means then that if your visuals are optimized for one, it means you now have to start optimizing it multiply.
Yes. So for artists, it's important to look at your analytics and make sense of it. If you do not know how to do that, find a friend.
Get somebody who can tell you.
Yes.
Maybe then the last question I'll ask you is can you tell us like 3 things that the data has been telling you about African musicians and African music that really makes you excited for the future of this space?
I mean, when you see Amapiano, which is not a Kenyan sound, but it's just like, it's growing and it's like, it's exciting a lot of people. And when you see everyone saying, we need to pay attention to Nairobi because Gengeton is picking up, then it tells you we are on the right path. Because I think for the longest time, there's been this debate, like, what is the Kenyan sound? And there's been this thing of, the government needs to regulate, 60% has to be Kenyan content. And I think the government can regulate, but if the broadcasters or the radio people are not seeing enough content to sort of like fill the slots, then it just means they are looking for alternatives. But Gengeton was one of those answers. And it just means we have to keep pushing. Because I think with what Afrobeat has done, and everyone is sort of like, okay, there's Afrobeat. And people are now starting to understand Africa is more than just Nigerian music. Africa is more than South African house dance music. So people are starting to understand there are 54 countries, all with different cultures. You can't box everything in one. So I think that is helping with a lot of education, both from people who've been investing blindly, where it's just like, it's one big country. And it's like, you have to understand the 54 different countries, all with different cultures, all with different sounds.
And that even the country, it'll be like Nairobi has a music culture.
Yes.
Different cities, different towns, different spaces.
And that you will see it has informed how people like Apple are sort of like starting to map the cities, or you will see where it's sort of like becoming like, okay, there's trigger cities in Asia, and people are putting out articles of how can you capitalize on the trigger cities that is Asia. So
could you tell us about trigger cities? Just as
so it's sort of like, where is music picking up? Yeah. So if it's Latin America and people are seeing a lot of the Asian communities, because I think at the start of the year, the Asian countries were declared as the trigger cities this year. So it's sort of like all these genres we are hearing from around are sort of like picking up in those specific territories, and people are curious why would be Indian-speaking people be interested in, Latin music? It's Spanish. I don't know, yeah. And it's just like that question of, do people connect with indigenous vernacular songs, or what actually motivates people to listen to the music? Yes.
I think the thing that I've really received from you is that sometimes there's things that data can tell you, and then there's other things that data cannot yet tell you. So people are still waiting to see, to collect everything and then be able to analyze it.
I mean, like the trends, sometimes you are looking at trends, or a song will start chatting and you're like, what is happening, right? And then you start going down the rabbit hole and it's like, oh, Shazam, or a placement on a certain TV show. And that sort of like keeps informing, like the data, you can't just like interpret it in one, because like for the way the artist will look at the data, for them it's like, oh, I want to tour Uganda, is this a market I should be focusing on? They go to their analytics dashboard and it's like, oh yeah, your people are in the UK, because also look at the UK, which is one of the destinations for African music. It's just like there's a lot happening every summer. There's like thousands of African festivals, when things were possible to have African festivals in the UK. So it's sort of like you really have to look at the data with different perspective. You can just like say, oh, this is your data, so we will invest according to this line, we will invest, or we will plan our tour according to this. Yeah. So you have to like, if you're an investor, then you're looking at that data with, an investment side, like what will it take to get this industry to the next level?
So you're holding it tight, but also being future focused.
Yes.
That is hard, man. Yeah. This is a hard industry.
I mean, like, everyone just thinks like, what is the music industry? Like, you guys wake up and then you go to studio and then you like say some few words in the microphone and it's done. Like, but like there's really a lot, because I have been in the music business for 5 years now, and it's just like, understanding, oh, okay, how does cultural journalism tie into, because all of these things are interconnected. So you have to lean into like the different facets of the business for you to really come up with a proper strategy as an artist. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you.
Especially for that last kind of thing that, please, if you're singing in your vernacular, sing in your vernacular.
Yes.
You will find your people. Yeah. And you might find them halfway across the world.
And I just like to take you back. I know it's sort of like that time.
Yeah.
But like I think when you look at Luo music from Kenya, or Kikuyu music, which is the Mugithi, there's an audience for it. Because like even us, when we look at how people consume that sort of like content, there's a market for it. And the missing puzzle is, where are these artists? Are they ready to come to the center stage and, take over the world? Because I think we definitely have such a vibrant culture in Kenya. It's just like we are underplaying it. So I wish everyone who... And I think I thank COVID as well. It has helped a lot of artists start looking at what are the other revenue streams. As I had mentioned, 70% of the business was purely focused on live performances and touring, and that wasn't possible. So everyone was like, how do I get my music on Spotify? And then they discover, oh, there's different distributors, each of them with different offerings. So sort of like people are slowly learning the business. I just hope it won't take like years of education, but like they will be able to, understand whether they have shortcomings, they're able to reach out to, other people in the field. And, if it's anyone who's looking to get their music out there, we as the Orchard exist, and we're able to just like provide strategy support or discussions and advice, because we know we can't like service the entire market. And sometimes you look at an artist and you're like, oh, okay, maybe this is your best play for this time as you look at growing to the next level. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And have a lovely day.
Thank you too.